The second thing I say, and this is really important, clear the clutter. You know, take a look, pretend you're having a party at your house, do whatever, you know, get into that mindset. Pick up your newspapers, your magazines, put them away. As much as we love our family pictures.
Well, I like that idea. That's the second idea you've come up with that I hadn't heard before, but pretend you're preparing for a party.
Right.
What a great idea. I mean, that really you do. You straighten things up. You want it to look attractive, not cluttered, but also like it's home. You want it to feel like home.
Right. And another thing, and I know this is a big thing lately I've run into, have your teenagers take their posters off their bedroom wall. I know they love them and it's their private space, but really it just makes all the difference in the world. Another thing I suggest is create curb appeal. Again, first impressions are, you know, tough to change. So as you pull up to the house, make sure your lawn is mowed and trimmed. You don't have your hose laying out in the yard, you know, put it on the side and you know, just
Little
keep it out of the way.
yeah.
Simple things. You know, if you have a flower bed, have some colorful flowers in there, or at least a few strategically placed pots that catch the eye with a little color. It just makes a home seem well cared for, and then they can't wait to get in to see what else, you know, see how nice it is inside.
That's great. Those are some good ideas, and contact Julie anytime to get some additional ideas, or maybe have her come out and look at your place and give you some suggestions.
And I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, so Julie has talked to me about CMAs, and of course we've covered this in some other videos. If you haven't watched those videos, it's a competitive or comparative market analysis where a professional real estate agent comes up with a value for your home. Now, you may be able to look at Zillow.com or one of these other websites and think that you've got a good value for your home. But being in the mortgage business, I've seen those values be so far off sometimes. One time I had one that came out exactly the same as what the appraiser went and finally did the appraisal on. But otherwise, they're just a wide variation of numbers, high and low. So tell us about one of your fortes, doing a CMA.
Well, a CMA, like Steve said, is a comparative market analysis. And I think the first challenge any home seller comes across is pricing their home right. And like you said, there are resources out there, but it's not always that easy. So you need to ask yourself as a seller, what is the market value of my home? What is my home going to sell for? And I can tell you the biggest pitfall for people really is thinking the market value is what it's not. And what it's not is what you bought the home for. It's not what you have into it. It's certainly not what you need to get out of it. And of course, you know, we're very attached to our homes, so those are the things we're looking for. What it is what the buyer is willing to pay and what you're willing to accept in the current market conditions. And that's very important as we see our market fluctuate. It's not what your neighbor got last fall for their home, even if it's identical.
I see.
So what we do as a real estate agent, we're going to go into our local multiple listing service, whether it's IRAs in Boulder or the Denver Metro list, and do a CMA by a few different categories. And I like to personally do a 2 or 3 tier CMA just to, you know, get the big broad picture and then narrow it down almost to your subdivision. And that depends on how large the subdivision is. But we're always going to look by bedrooms and bathrooms, square footage, and then sometimes we'll look in a whole city. Sometimes we'll narrow it down by a high school code. To get a little bit smaller, you may want to go by the elementary code, and then, of course, keeping bedrooms, bathrooms, and square footage, go down to a subdivision. Now, you know, some subdivisions are 200 homes, some are 2,000 homes, so that's going to get a little tricky there. But what it does is, you know, as the seller, we think, and you may live in a coveted subdivision, and we think, well, they're looking right in our subdivision, and our house is going to comp out just with the things in our subdivision. But you know, buyers have a lot more choices out there than that. They, you know, sometimes they're looking for a place between the husband's job and the wife's job, and that could be a whole city, it could be 2 cities. Sometimes they're looking for school district, and that's another reason I try to narrow it down by school district. And then other times, yes, that neighborhood is so fantastic that, you know, they're just waiting for a house to pop up in that neighborhood. And I've had all 3 of those situations on a regular basis. So in doing those, I look for the actives, the solds, and the under contracts. Now, The solds here are the most important for market value because, you know, we can ask whatever we want for our home, but it may sit on the market for a year. So the actives are just kind of out there for our second search, and I'll tell you about that. But what I do is I like to go back maybe 6 months. Right now, FHA loans are only, you know, you only have 3 months to do that, but I like to go back about 6 months and take a look and see what is similar in square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, and even amenities if you have that many choices out there. And maybe take the closest 3 to 6. I mean, our metro list will actually take up to 15 or maybe even 25 to do a comparison. Depending on how many choices you have out there, and get a good range of, you know, the 3 or 6 closest homes to yours that have sold in the last 6 months. Now, once you do that, usually we can come up with a good $10,000 range, because homes, unless there is something extra spectacular about them, you know, location, layout, square footage, you're going to get a similar price. You know, with the upgrades you're going to get more. If it's you know, if it hasn't been redone and it's an older home, it's going to take away from it. But we can usually get that number within about $10,000. Now, once you have that range, now you want to look at those actives and see, okay, these are my competition. So you want to, you know, let's say for example, we look at the statistics, and in the last 6 months, you know, we have 10 houses that are pretty close to yours in inventory. And we see that 2 houses seem to sell a month. If you need to move quickly, you want to be those top 2 houses. There are 2 things that'll do that. Price, like you said, and condition are the ways to differentiate yourself. Price, you can get in with the lower prices or the higher prices and know, you know, where you stand. But the other thing is condition, and it's not always the condition that we perceive, but you really need to step back and put yourself in the buyer's position and see, you know, what their perception of the condition of your home is.
That's very interesting. I just completed doing another video on home staging, and one of my points was, it's not what you prefer in the home, it's what the buyers prefer. In this job, as I've called it, of the many steps of being a FSBO salesperson, you have to realize your home is a product, just like any other product. Of course, you're not going to get it at Walmart, but it is a product that needs to be sold, and you have to go through the steps of doing that. I was interested in your comments about the variations with, you know, somebody may find a home that's in between 2 jobs or something like that. So there are sometimes subjective factors that play a larger role than just simply the price.
Right.
But the price is incredibly important if you want to get your home sold fast. If you have time to hold out and you want to go for a higher price, that's an option. But I think getting a real good value is a good way to go, because there really isn't any need to let something sit on the market too long.
Right, right. And of course, when you put your house on the market, you know, people ask, can we just list it higher for now? And if we don't get any people looking at it, can we lower the price? But quite honestly, your best bet is to price it right, because those houses will sit out there and let those other 2 out of 10 sell month after month after month. And then people start wondering, well, what's wrong with that house? So you definitely want your house priced right as you are, you know, as you're getting your marketing out there, if you're putting it on the MLS or Craigslist, right? Well, all that is hitting the market and inundating people that are looking in that price range. You want to be there. And people think, you know, well, am I leaving money on the table? And I can tell you, even in this market condition, we are getting offers right, you know, if the homes are priced right, we're getting them right at list price. You know, sometimes there are concessions involved, but we do have bidding wars, even in today's market. If a home is priced right, and that's the best house on the market, more than one buyer is going to want it. So
right.
It really saves you time. You're not paying that mortgage. You know, you have to think about how long you're going to be paying that mortgage.
And one other thing that Julie hadn't mentioned, but of course I see it from the mortgage end, is most people don't pay cash for their home. They get an appraiser. And if you think you can hold out for a higher price, but you're going to ask above what the market will bear, you won't get that home appraised. You may get an offer, you may accept that contract and open up escrow, and if that appraisal doesn't come out high enough for the loan that the people are trying to do, then all of that time will be wasted. So there's definitely some downside to asking too much for a home. And you never know when that buyer, who's the perfect buyer for your home, comes along, but if they think you're just overpriced, they'll just walk and go the other direction.